we sometimes will hear people talk about squats, and sometimes they'll say a back squat. And I don't like that. I don't like hearing about a back squat. What do you guys think? Can it just be called a squat when we're referring to having weight on your back and doing a squat?
Max?
Well, that's like a weightlifting thing, right?
I know. Like, I think that's what it's from, right?
They do front squats and then they do back squats. But in weightlifting, like everyone gets these exercise names from like the old Soviet texts, and it'll be like, you know, snatch, grip, push, press from behind the neck with medium grip. And you're like, that's like how the Russians would translate, right? It's like just a literal description of what's happening, not the exercise name. I still say back squat. In powerlifting, I wouldn't. I'd say squat. I was coaching powerlifting.
In powerlifting, I say competition squat or high bar squat, low bar squat.
Deep knee bend, something like that.
So it didn't come from CrossFit.
Yeah, I don't think
Looks
so.
like.
Oh yeah, I think it's a weightlifting thing for sure.
There we go.
Yeah,
blame it on the weightlifters.
Yeah.
Remember when I first met you and you asked me how many times a week I squat, and I said 3 times a week, and I said back squat, front squat, overhead squat.
Yeah.
And Max laughed at me for calling an overhead squat a squat.
It's not. Didn't really train your legs at all, right? No one's like building huge quads with like overhead squats, right?
So what would you call it?
I mean, it's overhead squat, but it's like an upper body exercise.
Okay.
You know?
But
Overhead-
if somebody asked you how many times a week do you squat, would you include your overhead squat?
Yeah, probably not.
No, yeah.
I mean, if you got to pump those numbers up, yeah.
But you got to remember, my man over here has done squat every day for like a decade, right?
Yeah, I did. I would, when I trained as a weightlifter.
I remember asking him because like the squat every day thing was getting like popular, and I was hearing all these people talk about it, and I was like, hey man, I was like, what do you think about squat every day? And he just totally laughed, and he was like, I don't know, I did it for like 10 years. What do you want to know about it? I was like, what the fuck?
You actually did it for 13. Yeah.
13, yeah. Forever. It was like, you know, it was weird because like if you were just take a kid and be like, hey, the secret to getting strong is just train as hard as you fucking can. Like, and you're like, okay, cool. And like, there's no internet. There's nowhere to like look it up and get good information. You're like, oh, let's go in the gym. And like, you know, I would just go in and squat every hour and just work up to maximum. And then, you know, no downsets, nothing, just singles. I hit like, you know, 405 and then put the bar in the rack, walk out of the gym, come back an hour later and do it again. Like 24-hour fitness, or I guess it was a Gold's Gym there, but.
How come no one cares in Olympic lifting? I remember watching those videos, and I analyzed one of your videos
yes.
one time where you got into a fight with the squat rack.
Oh yeah.
But like, there's people that are just sitting and chilling in the background at Olympic lifting gyms, and like someone could be squatting like 700 pounds. No one cares. There's no music.
Yep.
No fanfare. No one's spotting. And you miss and like you kill yourself, and still no one cares.
I feel like there's this thing in weightlifting, and this is something that's like, I don't know where it came from, but like it's almost like a who can be the most miserable, and like people will be like, oh, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, and like all these like secrets in Russia and China and all this, like they're training like 50 hours a week and all this, so you got to do the same thing. And so like along with that comes this like mentality of like you got to suffer, and whoever's suffering the most is going to be the best. And so it's like there's this like weird negativity around weightlifting, and like you get into it and you're like, okay, like, you know, oh, I gotta drag myself to the gym, and like you guys have no idea how hard this is, and it's brutal. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can go in the gym and train hard and have a good time and smile and love your life and love what you're doing. But that definitely like permeates it a lot. And there's a lot of that like kind of this weird culture of like, it used to be.
Yeah, I think it's a lot different now.
Yeah, it's different now, but it was a weird culture of like, who can be the most miserable? And like, you'd almost like go into like powerlifting where everyone's kind of happy most of the time. And it's like, you know, because you're doing stuff that's easy. You're not gonna show up to the gym and like, shit, I forgot how to squat.
So like one guy is like sitting on a bench in some of these videos, like, and he's in the background, and you're saying that probably what he's thinking is, there's no way that guy's gonna be more miserable than me today.
That was a weird environment because I was like, it could also have been that I was doing that every day. Like it was like every single day of the week I would go in and miss a 705 squat. And it was like, okay, Monday morning, and everyone's like, here comes fucking Max, gonna like, you know, miss squats again. Like I'd work up, I'd do, you know, 120, 170, 220, 270, 300, and 300 would be like okay, hit 300 kilos. And you're like, it's pretty good. Like, should I try 700? Should I try 320? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And then just miss. And then like the next day, the same exact thing. Well, it's Tuesday. Maybe it'll go today. And the same thing. Actually, I missed that 705 18 times before I made it at your meet on my second attempt. So the 18th miss was my first try at it. And then I came back and Jesse Burdick gave me some advice and, probably slapped me in the face or something, did something. And like, I was able to grind through it and that was it.
That project family, how's it going? Now, as you guys know, we have been talking about cold therapy for a while. Mark, Andrew, and myself, we all use cold plunge XLs since we're pretty big. But the cold plunge is amazing. And there are a lot of cold therapy tools out there. Obviously, you can use your shower. But the amazing thing about the cold plunge is, number one, it doesn't take up much space in your home or your backyard. And number two, you don't need to change your water, unlike other cold therapy devices, for 6 months to a year. It filters itself. Let's not even talk about all the benefits of cold plunging, like the dopamine release, how good you feel after doing it, and just the cascade of hormones that happens after you get in some really cold water. It's crazy, and we love it. So, Andrew, how can they get it?
Absolutely. You guys got to head over to thecoldplunge.com and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save $150 off your very own cold plunge. Again, thecoldplunge.com, links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
That's when, I realized that method's not going to work forever.
That's amazing. It sounds kind of scary to like get your ass kicked by something so many times and you keep coming back for more and more. Why do you think you tried it so many times? Like, weren't you realizing like maybe it wasn't working?
It's
like it wasn't helping.
Maybe he's just not very smart.
It's like why do people buy lotto tickets? Or like, why do you like when you're gambling? Because like sometimes you have a little bit of a like, oh shit, I was close. Or like, so I was when you guys had James Smith on years ago. So I used to live with James. I moved out to Redding, California.
That's a whole podcast right there.
Yeah, interesting guy.
The thinker, right? That's what we're talking about?
The thinker. And he got me a job at this like Indian casino. And I was a blackjack dealer. And you'd watch people come in all the time. And you're like dealing blackjack. And you'd watch these people come in and they'd be like, oh shit, this lady just lost 10 grand just in like 40 minutes, right? And she'd come in the next day. And you're just like, some people would just, they don't know if they're addicted to it, but they just come in and like, it's the like lose, then you get a win or a little winning streak. You're still down, overall you're down, but you're starting to win and you're like, oh, that's it. I found the pattern. Like, I know it. I'm going to like, this is going to keep going. So I think it was like that. It was like, every so often you'd hit a PR or you'd like, oh man, I hit 300 kilos all 15 workouts this week. PR's coming. And then the next week you just fall apart. So
this wasn't just some like squat every day where you do a semblance of a squat to a decent percentage. Like, this is squat every day till
you fail.
To
maximum.
Till you fail every time.
And also question about this for both of you guys. Did you do that type of squat every day for more than a decade?
Yeah. Well, at first, the first like 5 years I was doing weightlifting too. So my coach, he was really big on like the Bulgarians because they were like, infamously just like the best ever in the sport, right?
Yeah.
This era of just undefeated competition. Their system was just like maximum intensity every session, every exercise. 5 or 6 exercises was it. That's all they did. And so we only front squatted. So the first 5-6 years of my career, I front squatted every single day, 3 to 4 times a day. And my front squat at some point, I never did deadlifts. So one time we decided to deadlift and I had front squatted 230 kilos by then. And I couldn't deadlift 230. So I could front squat 500 before I could deadlift it.
I've seen that before with Olympic lifters. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then the second half, when I hurt my wrist, I just started back squatting, as one does.
It's like a 570 pounds or something, right?
507.
507.
Yeah, 230.
There you go.
Yeah. But it was just like, well, this is what I knew, and that's what I was doing. I think to myself, like, man, what a stupid way to train. But at the same time, it was like, it's kind of neat to have done it because you can look back and be like, well, just to have done that was kind of cool. And to like say, yeah, it's kind of neat, but also like I learned so much and that pushed me to do so many different things and to like actually learn how to train properly, coach people properly. Because, if I could have done that and been super successful, I'd have one recipe, and I just used that recipe all the time. And for people it didn't work with, sorry, shit out of luck. But now that I know more about it and learned about it afterward, it made
So
a
maybe
difference.
the emphasis was like a little too much on squats in your case for too many years or whatever. But why do you think the squat does have great transfer into Olympic lifting, and why do you think it's helped? Because a lot of the best Olympic lifters do have really, really awesome squats, right?
Yeah. I mean, it just has a high correlation. So many of the same muscle groups. It's like everything's going to transfer just because the general strength qualities you build in the squat are very, very high correlation to snatch and clean and jerk. They're very similar movements. You're not going to develop the same speed qualities, so you still have to do the Olympic lifts, right? But there's just a huge transfer because high bar back squats make your quads and back and hips really strong. And those are the same muscles, and they work very similarly to the way that the Olympic lifts are performed.
If you start to squat with a low bar and you start to squat a little bit more like a power lifter, is there still a good transfer or not?
I don't-
entirely the same.
I don't think so. I think that's a really common thing a lot of people talk about. Like a lot of people ask, like, well, the argument is like, oh, if you do low bar squats, you can lift more weight, and that's going to make you stronger. But if it was true, and this is kind of like the way I would look at a lot of stuff, just from a through a skeptical lens, like look at what everyone's doing. The winners aren't doing this. The Olympic champions aren't doing low bar squats. Like you couldn't convince me that China, a country that's put huge resources into the sport, didn't try low bar squats. We used to joke like there's probably Chinese coaches, like a Chinese research team that coaches people that like bought starting strength and did everything and bought TB12 and they tried that and just every single program there is, and they've tried it and seen like, okay, does this work? But yeah, so the low bar squat stuff is like, I don't think you'd get the same results. Some people can do it and you can still do it. She squatted like low bar squats and weightlifting it towards the end.
And I kind of had that same philosophy that if I moved the bar lower, I could hold my position a lot better because I'm a short torso, long leg, long femur person. And I squatted 150 kilos at 58 kilos body weight. And my whole philosophy was, well, if I can do that and I squatted ass to grass, but the bar was low, then I'm strong enough to clean and jerk my very small clean and jerk compared to that. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it transfers more. And a lot of times with low bar squats, you're not going all the way down. You might be just going just below parallel, and you might be squatting slower, not as explosively. So
It might have something to do with a real upright posture, right? Like you need an upright posture to be able to receive a clean and jerk properly and to be able to receive a snatch properly and be in good alignment, right?
Yeah, a lot of weightlifters don't even back squat later in their career. They just front squat,
I have a question. Just going back to the squat comment, is it a high bar squat? Is it a squat? When you were only front squatting for all that time, did Coach Goff say squat max, or did he say front squat max?
They just squat.
So squat,
That's all we did.
Back squat. Yeah.
squat could be a front squat. Just saying squat.
Yeah.
So Power Project family, I hope you enjoyed this clip. We are on Discord and Reddit. We're trying to talk to you guys and build a community down there. So the links are in the bio. But remember, like, comment, subscribe, share this out with people so you can share the wealth of health. As cheesy as that fucking sounds. Peace.